on cloud and related technologies for government businesses. For this, I would like to invite the eminent speakers on the stage. And we start with Mr. Vimal Wakhlu, Chairman and Managing Director, Telecommunications Consultant India Limited. So please join us. Mr. Prem Narayan, Director. Prem Narayan, Director, Foreign Procurement, Ministry of Railways. Mr. Vishwanath, Alluri, Founder and Executive Chairman, IMImobile. So please join us on the stage. Mr. R. Balasubramanian, National BD, Cloud Solutions, HP.
I'll tell you.
We also have with us Country Director of HP Cloud Enterprise Group, India, Mr. Narayan. Sir, I request you to please join us on the stage. And lastly, our session chair, Ma'am Renu Buddhiraja, Senior Director and Head of the Department, State Data Centers, Department of Electronics and Information Technology, Govt of India. Ma'am, I invite you on the stage. We have industry experts here. We have with us Mr. Vishwanath Alluri, who is the founder and executive chairman of IMImobile Private Limited, which was founded in 1999 with a vision of building intellectual properties out of India in the mobile data space for international markets. IMImobile has emerged as a leading mobile data platform and services company serving over 90 mobile operators in 72 countries. Vishwanathji is also a producer of a documentary film, Monk with a Camera. Vishwanathji is deeply touched with by Jiddu Krishnamurti teachings and is closely involved with Krishnamurti foundations worldwide in their work of archivals, publications and schools. So, and with this, I hand over the session to Ma'am Renu Buddhiraja.
Thank you so much. In fact, I'm so glad that I've been able to make it. I came in the morning also for a session and there was an important meeting. I was asked to rush back. Unfortunately, the meeting concluded on time and I'm again here to share our thoughts. And then we have a great panel here, and the topic that I see, of course, we're talking about primarily the return on investment, the value proposition, which is a very major question that is there when we talk about cloud technology. I mean, yes, you have concerns on security, privacy, which the previous session talked about. But of course, a lot of these areas, when you talk about a cloud, which is seen more as a solution in a data center, where you have the location of data, say within India, the concerns get reduced drastically. And if you have the necessary standards, guidelines and policies, and even you empower the departments with the necessary tools per se, which will enable them to just fill up the answers, and ultimately it gives you a decision that this is the application and this is the kind of a cloud that can be taken. So things are going to be simplified, and I think in this journey we will definitely, while we've started seeing the demand, we will definitely see that the benefits that we are talking about, there's a lot of tangible benefits also. So I think this session, eminent panelists will be talking and sharing their experiences, maybe some of the case studies, which will, I'm sure, bring the necessary trust and confidence, and also bring, the kind of clarity which is required to move from theory to an implementation. So what I'll do is, maybe I'll take just 5 minutes and spend on a small case study from the government perspective, and then I'll be inviting one by one our speakers to share their. So can I just see where is mine? See, I'm not going to be taking the name of any department or something, but this is an exercise recently done as a part of a committee for a department which had to actually evaluate whether we should go into a cloud or not for the entire revamping of the department's applications. So in fact, they were to take up not just as a test and development environment or some kind of an analytic application, but it involved their core functionality also. Of course, we've been listening, I'm sure, since morning, cloud vis-a-vis the conventional models, where we know the kind of concerns and the issues and the delays we happen when you take a co-location kind of a model in any data center. You buy your own equipments, you maintain those equipments, you take care of the licenses, softwares, everything. And so the challenges are huge. You need to have those kind of experts with you, whether you hire them externally, set up a PMU, or you have your internal resources. You need to look at your technology obsolescence also. You need to try and see, okay, the new versions of the software have come, and then even the hardware is getting obsolete. So all those concerns, why you are getting drifted from your domain area. So just going back, what we did was, when we started, this department wanted to see whether really, in fact, this all triggered after we sent communication to the various departments at the center and state, and they started calling us and they started looking at it. So they actually went ahead and they said, please give us the value proposition. Please tell us exactly what is the benefit we are going to get. And let me tell you, apart from, yes, the long procurement cycles which the government is always concerned, finance and funding is also definitely another issue. So we did it. So I'll just share with you, this is primarily from the infrastructure and the platform part of it, and I'll just talk about the software through another experience of mine. What we did was, we took up their requirements. This was done by some consultant of theirs earlier, because they had floated an RFP, and that they had certain issues and they had to go for a rebid. That is where the decision was to look at, let us examine. So, we did a study, we saw their requirements on what's available on the screen, not going into details of each, but if you see, in a conventional co-location model, where they needed the number of servers, storage, firewall switches, whatever was required, and we found the cost was 13.5 crores for 5 years. So I'll not get into this. Then what we said, okay, let us now examine exactly in a cloud environment. And what we did was to ensure some of the concerns that the departments also have, which is also relevant till we have the necessary frameworks, and we tell the departments that they, based on the data sensitivity, you should be having this kind of a model for hosting. So what we said was, let us have a dedicated cloud set up by a private cloud service provider for you. So we have taken these charges which are prevalent by a cloud service provider, and who gave us 20% additional charge on what is they charge for a public cloud. So that has been taken into account when we did the entire calculation for them. Now if you look at the whole thing, we found, of course, it emanates into the servers. We talked about 16 servers, and we were talking the number of cores, I think 16 core per server, and we talked about 10 and those. So this came out to so many cores, 208 cores, and for the DR it was 144. So this was all calculated. And we found that as a part of the cloud, a lot of these firewalls, application switches and all, they're being given as managed service available to them. This entire costing came down to 9.5 crore for them. And then we did a complete analysis and showed them. Now if you go in for a traditional model, what we would be doing is, we'll buy upfront the 100% of the capacity for the 5 years. That's precisely which I was telling in the morning also, because for government to really take approvals again and again becomes a big process in itself. So if you see the blue straight line on the top, you will see that year 1 itself we've gone ahead and started taking the 100%, and that continues for the 5 years. Whereas the red one is showing that if I am on the cloud, if I need a capacity of only 50% that you see in the beginning, and it goes down up to 100% over a period of 5 years, then the space, the idle resources that you see in between, which we had procured and we were maintaining them also. So that's something which can be avoided if we use the cloud. We showed this to them. Then the same thing if you look at the finance part of it, the red one shows that I'm not going to be paying the capex upfront. I actually am going to be paying pay per use kind of a thing. So the funding, actually the payments are spread over a period of time, whereas in the first case, the co-location model where you kind of pay 5.36 crore upfront and gradually you get into the OPEX, so this whole model changes. We saw that a total saving of 35 to 40% over a period of 5 years could be seen in this case. Now the case would vary. I mean, there could be some departments who really know what is the kind of capacity they need upfront. So they might say, okay, 70% is what I need upfront. So maybe this gap will reduce down to maybe 25% or something. But definitely, if you see, there is a huge benefit from the tangible perspective. And of course, which I'm sure since morning we've been listening to, the non-tangible part of it. See, you are empowered as a user department. If you actually want to buy any compute, you get into the entire process. You are in the mercy of various hands. Whereas on the cloud environment, if you have a self-service provision portal available with you, where once you have taken your internal approvals, you are in a position to provision. Imagine the empowerment that you get. So which is definitely an important aspect when you get into the cloud part of it. Apart from that, as we saw, the elasticity, on demand, time to market, because it's an agility available. You don't get into those processes. Metered usage, because if I'm able to get into a paper kind of a model, then I know what I'm consuming. I can plan accordingly. And so I've just shared some of these technology obsolescence you don't have to really worry about. And then vendor lock-in, exit management, all that can be taken care if I am in a position to come up with the necessary guidelines, policies, and when we accredit any cloud providers that you should say data portability, disaster recovery, all these aspects if we are in a position to take care. So that you are not locked to one vendor. Tomorrow you realize that, okay, I'm not happy with these services. It's very easy to switch over if you have been in a position to have those contractual agreement which very clearly bring out the exit management and the necessary portability and other aspects required and the interoperability part of it. So this will cut across standardization and bring that also. Otherwise what you see is within a department there could be one application which is totally running in a different environment, the other running in a different environment. Whereas if I get into a cloud and I have an administrator for a department, and then you have a clarity about what kind of resources the entire department is using, can we optimize the whole? So the entire thing can be managed in a much better way. So this is from the infrastructure which we saw. I just also wanted to share with you, as a part of our, before we started the entire cloud initiative, we took up the rapid rollout initiative. That was primarily because we wanted to see how do we increase the transactions in the country. So we said, let's take up some successful applications and roll them out immediately. And the objective was, let's see if we can immediately make them cloud ready, productized and centrally hosted. But of course, what we found is, we took up some of these applications, and I'm just giving you, I'm just giving you an idea. If you see, these are actual values which we really did in terms of the costing that. If you take a traditional way of doing any application, then you get into the entire process of preparing a DPR, there's a hardware, the entire, I'm not getting into details, but the actual total estimated cost in one, and we've taken e-pass. This is an e-scholarship application which was replicated successfully in Himachal, Tripura, Karnataka, and we are doing it in Jharkhand now. And we found that you can bring a drastic improvement in terms of the calculation showed 38.5% saving and 51.5% saving in these cases. This is from the cost perspective. And the time perspective, exactly in a similar way. The minister was able to launch the e-pass application in Himachal and Tripura in just 3 months' time for 26 schemes in Himachal. I mean, that was only possible because we started looking at how we can actually convert this into a product. And now this is, of course, let me tell you, this wasn't a cloud ready at that moment, because to convert it into a cloud ready, there are a whole lot of other things also required. But this is now going to be available as a single cloud ready product in the next 2 months' time. So this was something I just wanted to share. So there's a lot of value for you people also in this. And with this, of course, I would now be requesting eminent speakers. Let me just see the first one. Can I have Mr. Balasubramanian here from HP? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, panelists and the audience. I'm really privileged to be before you. I'll take a few minutes to put my points before you. So, ROI part has been extremely well elucidated. So, I'm going to focus at this point of time about what from the initial days of the e-governance to the cloud-based e-governance models, what we have seen from overall perspective, from HP perspective, and where do we think, where we see things going forward. A thought leading, open thought leading stuff that I'm going to say, and probably I'm sure you would have few things to say and we will interact. And I think we have the women panelists to support as well. So let me get ahead. So it's a nice a picture that's close to my heart. It's a technology that you are seeing. You're kind of small mini rocket. It's not just without any technology that it goes to the clouds. Obviously, we are talking clouds, but you see the enthusiasm in the child. So the child is enjoying. So a cloud as a tool should give enjoyment to us, right? So it should elevate our experience. So that's what's the fundamental basis to the cloud, that you've seen an era of optimization costs. From one way of looking at it is from ROI perspective. One, and also multiple ways to look at it, but it's about optimizing costs. So virtualization itself did its own bit a lot. But what about optimizing the operations, right? So irrespective of what you have done at the infrastructure level in the IT, so there are that operations that you do to give a service out. That's not diminishing. In fact, it probably gets to the other direction, right? So that's about cloud. Cloud should do the automation. Cloud should give take away the mundaneness, take away the repetitiveness, and thereby eliminate the possibility of error, and also give you the speed to the service. So these are the elements that come in when we just think about what's automation. And this is something well known. Today we are in the world of mobile, right? So everything needs to come into the mobile. SMAC, very popular term, social mobile, analytics and cloud. And if you see the evolution out there from Web 1.0, Web 1.0 is internet, right? Which is like information available for access, to what we are talking at this point of time as SMAC, which is Web 2.0, wherein it's all about collaboration. Right? and where we are headed to. We are headed to Web 3.0. Web 3.0 is all about my web. It's about my web meaning your web, in the sense that you as an identity is there and needs services. Everyone around comes around to deliver you the services, right? So that's my web concept. So if you see in a perspective of what the digital e-governance to the citizen, from point of view of the citizen, if you would see, it's all about my web concept. So how different services from various departments come together to deliver services to a person who establishes his identity and requests for services, how things string around and come in. So that's the basis. So for that, the first element, the elemental thing that comes into play is how things can work together. So that's what's going to be the focus of my small presentation, how things can work together, why it needs to work together, what is required for it to make to work together. Right? So this is something well known that as we aspire for Web 3.0, we are also seeing the other side of it, the operation side of it. The operations to make that happen, either from the infra perspective or from the app perspective, is not something minuscule. It explodes. The complexity explodes. The number of tools that is required explodes. Even there are some statistics. I'm not going to tell what the statistics are about, but the amount of tools that you will require to manage such an interactive my web environment is not trivial at all, right? So given that scenario, cloud had the promise. Cloud came up with a promise saying that I'll show the way to optimize the operations. I'll show the way to deliver service-oriented architecture in a self-service model. So it's all about service-centric IT delivering services to you, right? So and if you see the traditional journey ramp up of the cloud, there are various organizations that have gone in, government, non-government, commercial. All of them have gone through multiple various routes and multiple various deployment models, right? But what's important out there is that finally in the MyWeb, in Web 3.0, in that concept, if you see all of them, you need to have a view of all of them together. You need to have apps delivered to you that work across the deployment models. Across board, it needs to all put together its services and deliver it to you. So that's what's the important thing about what's called as converged cloud architectural concept, right? So if we know about private cloud, public cloud, hybrid cloud, right? So familiar terms, community cloud, familiar term. So if we see the digital governance and the cloud-based digital governance is a concept of a massive community cloud. So the same thing comes in. So some of the aspects that is brought in out here, that such a community-based cloud deployment for large-scale digital governance would obviously have multiple deployment models inside it. Private, public, hybrid. Obviously, some of the very core essential services, probably confidential services, probably mission-critical services would be there in a secure data center, and you would have probably lots of surrounding applications, the contextual applications, which can be there outside. So we had a chance to work through NASSCOM from the industry perspective to with DeitY when Buddhiraja was being formed. Dr. Renu, Madam, spearheaded that, and we had some inputs through NASSCOM. So I'm very glad to hear at different points of time the aspect that in the whole concept of Buddhiraja, there are cloud service providers who are also part of the scene, right? So that really gives a good fabric for the community cloud. So if you go further beyond and see how the digital governance evolved from a very admin-centric to a customer-centric, which is citizen-centric, as it evolved through the nascent stage to the developed and mature to innovate stage. The innovate stage is what it's really about: cloud and cloud-based my web environment, my services environment, right? Towards that, in that goal, in that path, we from HP have also grown. It's a journey. We also learn, we also implement at different points of time, different things, and go forward. And one of the very early steps in 2005, 2006, much before cloud was so well known in the industry, we did some project for Govt of Karnataka e-procurement, where even today we manage the e-procurement systems by ourselves. And for example, the model, the innovative thing about this is about the pay-per-use model. We get paid per tender that is floated and tender that gets fulfilled. So the pay-per-use model, which is one of the essential characteristics in the cloud-based service-centric delivery, has been something that practiced by different groups, and we have done some very good implementation. We have got very good accolades around that. We're happy about that, and we learned further, and we went ahead as the digital governance came up. We put up a framework, and we wanted to work with various governments across the globe, and we have some very good success stories as well there. For example, some of the specific government, there are lots, about some close to 100 such case studies available. I'm not going to say about all of them, but to just say about one is such example is Australian government, where we put it on what you call as VPC, Virtual Public Cloud. Digital governance application on a virtual private cloud. So now the next example is something that we really learned a lot. This is in the recent years, in the last 3-4 years, where the Singapore government runs with we being the technology provider for the Singapore government. So the Singapore government's Infocom Development Authority, IDA, and Singtel, which is the national telecom carrier, HP, and we all together formed a collaborative platform from which we are able to serve to Singapore government various e-governance facilities, right? So now with steady one-by-one learning across the adoption models, deployment models, and we have gone through this journey, we have reached a stage today, which May 7th of this year, 2014, we announced a big strategy around what we call as Helion, right? It's brand name. So Helion, by this brand, by this effort, what we are doing is we are investing about $1 billion behind it, all about open source based interoperable cloud. So this is we believe a very strong contribution that HP is making to give a framework, a platform for an interoperable cloud, which is very essential. For example, if you see going forward, for example, Meghraj. So I would say I've read this once or twice, and I've found that I have not read a more elegant, more thoughtful, more clean document than this. So very elucidated document, and here you see some, I think, Dr. Renu, Buddhiraja's contribution. Out here, if you see here that SDCs, state data centers, work with the Meghraj. So what it says, the SDCs deploy clouds on their methodology, and they go over deploying it, and they need to work with Meghraj. They need to collaborate at the infra level. They need to work at the app level, PaaS level. So at the IaaS, PaaS, SaaS, at all levels, they need to work together. What it takes for it to work together is the important thing. There should be standards. So this is what we believe from the HP Helion investment perspective, where we contribute. We contribute, in terms of developing this OpenStack as a technology, open source technology to the world. We are the leading contributors to the OpenStack. You can see the charts that show the adoption of the OpenStack in the graphs that you can see. So we have contributed to the growth, and we continue to contribute key. And we have in fact formed it as a part of the key strategy for our product portfolio itself. Going forward, our product portfolio strategy is going to be hinged around OpenStack, open standards. Right. So, and if you see from the other perspective, one of the key elements about the Meghraj as well, for example, if you were to talk in that context, is about developing the app store. There are various governmental and probably non-governmental frameworks who develop applications. If you see from that perspective, we need to have a framework in which the applications need to be developed on an interoperable way again, and that's again a big standard that's coming up, which we are extremely focused on, which is called Tosca, which is also we find in the SDCs and the Meghraj, a heavy emphasis has been put in, which is essentially going to say that how applications can be deployed seamlessly across the deployment models, across the platforms, without reinventing the wheel. How quickly the application's deployment is transportable. So that's the key about it. So this is what I wanted to say. There is an aspect about ROI. There is another aspect about automation, right up to the automation levels, where we need to find out the ways and means to make the application work in a multi-tenant way or in the most performant way. These two slides say about that. If we have to work around that, we need to adopt certain standards so that you will see the uniform service level availabilities across the cloud when you traverse the, from the main grass to the SDCs. You get service delivered from anywhere, any point in the cloud. You need to experience uniform service levels. We need to have some standards around that. So with that, I would conclude my small. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. In fact, I think this part was okay. If we can actually leverage cloud so that it really becomes fun, it empowers you, and you can actually have converged service provisioning over the cloud, and of course what you touched primarily on the standards part of it, which is extremely important, I see, because if we are not in a position to really build platforms for developing applications which will enable for them to run on different cloud platforms, I think we'll again become silos in terms of applications. I think thank you so much, and it's important that the industry which is actually working in this area, they collaborate with government, academia and all, and we really work together to see all these happen. Thank you so much. With this, I'm now requesting at... Hello? I would request my next speaker, Vishwanath Alluri, who is the founder and executive chairman, IMImobile, to kindly give his...
Thank you very much. I think the earlier speaker had a lot of technology expertise. I only want to say that I'm going to talk completely non-technical. You imagine you are listening to a farmer, a rural farmer. I'll tell you why. Because today's, I only want to say two things. I'm assuming most of the people here are from government departments. How do they go about in this maze of technology? So much of talk goes around, so much of jargon, all that. I've got two things to tell. What is the approach they should take, the government departments, to capitalize on the new wave of technology. First of all, what is new wave of technology compared to the old wave? There are two waves, if you can see. The tsunami effect is there in it, I think. This is only my observation, which I am saying based on my 1.5 decades of journey as the founder of this mobile company, which is now working in 72 countries with 90 operators, huge operations in UK and everywhere, in US also. So what is happening now? The new technology. Today's technology is comprising of social, cloud, mobile. I call it only SOCLOMO, not SMAC. I don't use the word A. That is the effect of tsunami. A has come up there. Actually, I'll come to that later. The social, cloud, mobile. This is a new generation. Earlier days, it used to be hardware and software. Hardware you bought on capex, and software you bought on licenses. Then the question of return on investment comes. As earlier they were talking of return on investment. Today, the question of return on investment doesn't arise. It's completely operational expenditure. Pay per use, you like to use it, you pay it or you stop it. So, because of this new way of technology, how do we use it? Since morning, we have been referring to various speakers have been referring to governance, minimum government and maximum governance. That's a good, I think I like that line given by our new Prime Minister. So we are talking of governance at the fingertips. Because mobile, if you talk of mobile, mobile is more than the internet, if you ask me. Internet is a subset. It's mobile mass is much bigger. So especially in India, if you take mobile, if you consider how to interact with citizens, it's the mobile. I don't think there's ever going to be penetration of internet penetration on laptops as much as what we have got on mobile. So that's what we talk of governance at the fingertips. morning also some speakers referred to, what is the relevance to the citizens? What is the use of all this technology, whatever we talk, all the pundits, we are talking of consultants' paradise. They use somebody else used the word consultants' paradise. I call it punditry. The SMAC is punditry. I tell you why SMAC is punditry. Social mobile cloud is a new wave. A is analytics. They are bringing this. Because the earlier generation companies, they are missing the plot. It's not possible to become a new generation player in their own lifetime. I can tell you this. Why? So analytics is actually as old as accounting function. It's nothing new in that. Yes, big data is there. You call it analytics. That is doesn't belong to the same class as social mobile cloud. They belong to one class. Analytics is always there. It's nothing, not because of mobile you need analytics. So the big IT, so-called earlier legacy technology companies, I call them, they come up with this punditry, SMAC they called it. Because they would find their way into these new generation companies. Because earlier generation companies, they have lost the plot. For instance, one of the biggest IT majors have lost $600 million contract with CIA in America to another cloud company. What is cloud? We talk of cloud. You see, today there is also something called cloud capitalism and the gang of four. What is cloud capitalism? People, children, youngsters in their mid-20s are becoming billionaires because they got something in cloud. You take any of these new companies. And the gang of four are referred to Apple, Google, Facebook and Amazon. None of the earlier IT service companies figure in that. So my only observation is, if governments have to go and provide mobile governance to citizens, I think they should look at new generation companies, not the IT service companies who are earlier. Because it is like looking at a neem tree, looking for mangoes in that. They can't transform easily. They have been struggling, they are acquiring companies, they are writing down the investments, all these kind of things are happening. So that is number one. Number two, the integrated platform for all government services. This is what we have been doing with the state government, where we have provided one platform for all the services of all departments, over 300 services on a single platform. This saves a lot of time and energy for various departments to write RFPs, to understand what it's all about. At the same time, one platform, a single platform, it provides the ability to integrate all the various data sources into single analytical platform. So that is these are the two things I thought I would say. Also, I would like to say that when I talk of earlier IT service companies and new generation companies, why new generation companies are relevant when you talk of M-governance. Today I read in the press, the Prime Minister talked of skill, scale and speed. If you look at skill, earlier IT service companies, they don't have the skill. They can talk punditry, no problem. I'm talking like a farmer, I'm telling you, I told you earlier. I work in the farm, I work in the, that's based on that experience I'm talking. And we talk of scale, yeah, they have scale in different domain. Speed, big companies, speed is a problem. And morning also, actually the title, what I see here, Meghraj, sounds very good, but also there is a problem for me with that. I think this is the first generation when the government department started computerizing their their work. Probably they use this. It is all about how to create IT, setups within the departments, but they are only intra. I think they are not with the public as such. If you really want to go public, it has to be mobile. So when you talk about Meghraj, it sounds like earlier Raj. Actually, I think it's better to have Janta in that. So Janta is mobile, fingertips, governance at the fingertips. So this is, I think, quickly to conclude, there are two things: integrated platform, which we are doing with the state government, which is shortly, I am told, will be inaugurated with the Prime Minister. 300 services, first time in the country, maybe first time in the world. That kind of platform is deployed, where citizens can interact with the government departments on multiple channels: SMS, voice, USSD, web, applications, everything. And also there is not only government to citizen, there is also government to government. Like, if government is sending their people to inspect, like Anganwadi places, they can, really check how these fellows have gone and done the inspection. So that is kind of a whole canvas of services for the first time. So with this, I think I've run short of my time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. In fact, mobile is definitely one area which has to be imbibed in some way or the other. And also, Government of India, we have a mobile seva, and in fact, we've recently been awarded the UN PAN Award. And for this, because we have almost 400 plus departments now, it's a single platform. And I think there is a lot we should be working with the private organizations like IMImobile, where you have a lot of further technology-wise, expertise which can be leveraged by the governments, I would say. And I agree, social cloud and mobile is going to be the way for us to move. And with the data getting generated, the unstructured data from the social, from the mobile, analytics, of course, while it's not at the same this thing, but it will definitely be very critical for us to leverage in order to do a better decision making, planning and forecasting. Thank you so much. With this, I will now be inviting our next speaker, Mr. Vimal, Wakhlu, who is the Chairman and Managing Director, Telecommunications Consultants Limited.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for this particular session was the cloud and related technologies for PSUs and the government, business. Now, of course, in the beginning, Renu has already mentioned, she has given a comparison, a case study, how the cloud ensures better return on investments. And of course, it's common sense. When the resources are common, it's bound to ensure a better return on investments to all the stakeholders. Now, one of the major things which come out of this are the managed services. The all public sector enterprises, as you are aware, there are a lot of them, and more than 50% of the Indian economy is controlled by the public sector itself. And if all the public sector enterprises have managed service model, which can be a centralized model, and nobody need to duplicate resources, there is a lot of synergy possible in the public sector enterprises, whether it's delivery of software as a service, infrastructure as a service, or platform as a service. It's possible to do that. And in fact, we are already offering this service to a number of PSUs. We are also offering the e-tendering platform, which ensures complete transparency in the procurement sector. And as rightly pointed out by the earlier speakers, all the client PSUs, they have a choice whether to sort of continue with the service if they are satisfied, or discontinue if they are not happy with the service. So this is a big departure from the past, when you used to get stuck to your investments and you have to live with it, whether it's serving your purpose or not. Besides this, for PSUs which are involved in various operations like oil and other sectors, Internet of Things, machine-to-machine communication, that also in the cloud infrastructure, it's possible to have SCADA systems based on those and leverage all the common resources. It will be much cheaper for the various public sector enterprises, and they can invest their surplus money elsewhere wherever they need. So this cloud infrastructure is going to be a game changer in the country. Besides that, the banking sector, there are a lot of public sector banks also involved, and our population in the rural areas, which is more than 70% in 637,000 villages. So if we are to ensure financial inclusion, the only way to do it is through infrastructure which is common, and coupled with that, there is a scheme by the government called the National Optical Fiber Network, which ensures connectivity, because for any cloud infrastructure, connectivity is an important thing. And if you reach all these villages and ensure financial inclusion, then only we'll be able to remove this digital divide. Then besides that, most of the PSUs also need training. They need to train their people from time to time, and it's quite an expensive proposition bringing all of them to one location and then training them. So instead, it can happen online, and they would be able to leverage on a common infrastructure so far as the education part and the training part is concerned, and result in a lot of saving and optimal utilization of resources. Also, there is another challenge that some of the PSUs are located in major metros. If they have their infrastructure in these metros, it's going to cost much more. So if we have a decentralized approach as is envisaged, it is possible that they can save on the real estate costs. That is one of the major reasons that cloud technology is proving to be a boon. Coming to the government sector, there are endless possibilities so far as the government is concerned, starting with the education sector itself. You know, there are so many IITs, so many NITs, so many engineering colleges running into maybe thousands, and now there is a proposal by the government to set up IITs in all the state governments, have IIMs everywhere. Now, the tendency right now is to have your own kitchen. Everybody would have its own library. Every institution would have its own faculty. Now, it is possible with this particular infrastructure to share all this, because you need not have a centralized, you can say, digital library. You can have a decentralized one. Every institution specializing in a particular faculty, all those resources can be accessible to everybody throughout the country. And once a network like NOFN is in place, even from a remote village, there is no reason why a villager would not be able to access the libraries of IIT Delhi, for that matter. And it is possible to do with this infrastructure. And also delivery of content, and have virtual classrooms, like we have established a virtual classroom setup over 48 countries in Africa working with India. And there is no reason why it cannot be replicated within the country itself. Online examination system, and also in these educational institutions, there is a possibility of collaborative research, which is possible. There are, some institutions which have strength in a particular area, while others in some other. So in a collaborative way, their miracles can be performed instead of being in silos. So there is a great potential in that. Coming to the second sector is the health sector. There also the potential is tremendous. Right now, as I mentioned, 637,000 villages, and we don't have 637,000 doctors to take care of the villages alone, which is, as I mentioned, 70% of the population. So how do we do it? Again, leveraging technology, using these common resources, having a call center in a main location in a state, and then having paramedics equipped with various instruments, which in a collaborative mode with the doctors at the call center, which are manned round the clock, it's possible to provide some semblance of service to all the villagers. Now, in this particular case, this common infrastructure can be delivered through cloud, and it's not something which is on paper. It's been tried in Orissa and is a very successful model over there, and there are many organizations internationally who feel that it can be replicated in most of the developing nations where there is a shortage of the health infrastructure. It is also possible with this to have a centralized citizen health records, to provide mobile, as was mentioned by the previous speaker, for even the villagers. They'll be able to have a lot of interactive possibilities for their health services. And also, it's possible to control fake drugs. This is a major challenge the country is faced with. Even the exporters of drugs from India are facing this challenge. In one of the telemedicine conferences organized by WHO in Ghana, I was asked a question. Yes, it all looks beautiful, Pan-Africa and all that, but why are you selling us fake drugs from India? I had no answer, nor did the ambassador of India, who was present in that particular meeting, have any answer. When I came back to India, I came to know that it's a major challenge. These fake drugs, made in India drugs, are not manufactured in India, but they are manufactured elsewhere, maybe in China, and they get money and we get a boot. This is one area which can be handled if this whole cloud infrastructure is in place for the government. Besides that, e-governance is a major application. As all of us are aware, we need to be proud as Indians. But the fact remains that we are one of the most corrupt nations in the world. This is really sad. And all this can change if this whole infrastructure can be leveraged properly. We are aware that there are 2 states in India, bordering somewhere in the west. You will guess the names. One at the common border point, the equal amount of revenue is collected from each vehicle. So if we go theoretically, the amount of revenue collected in both the cases should be equal, but it is not. It's not. The difference in revenue collection is about 500 crores a year. And what's the reason for that? The reason for that is a complete IT infrastructure is in place for one state, where at the capital, every hour, any person sitting there can know how much revenue has been collected from that particular joint, that particular post. Whereas in the other one, it's all computerized, but it's not as you can say fully IT enabled system, wherein anybody can monitor from the remote location. Besides this, we are aware about land records, digitization, Aadhaar, passport, driving license. All these things can happen, and even communication with the citizens, which is of course one major area. We see that our new Prime Minister is also quite savvy so far as the social media is concerned, and communicating with the citizens. And this can happen even down up to the village level, when every such type of infrastructure is possible. And with all these things, it's possible for the government also to save on resources. Crime and criminal tracking system that can be enabled fully in the country if this whole infrastructure is in place. Similarly, water resource management, energy management, smart grids, smart metering, all, and one more important section, that is the SME section. The SMEs, there are people who contribute to the national economy in a big way, but at the same time, there are some of them, may not be all of them, who evade taxes. In Delhi also, most of us are aware that if you go to a shop and say that, you give me this, he'll say, okay, it's 100 rupees. But if you ask for the receipt, he'll say it's 120. So that's what happens, and this money doesn't go into government coffers. But if government ensures that there is a mandatory ERP system for all the SMEs and everybody has to go through that for all their billings, which happens in many of the countries abroad, it is possible that all this extra revenue, which just goes in, gets converted into black money, also comes back into the country. So there are endless possibilities, and of course cash transfer to the citizens. In the previous scheme we have seen, when this Manrega was introduced, people were quite enthusiastic. 560 lakh crores have been pumped into the rural economy, but has it really helped people? Farmers are still committing suicide. So ensuring a proper cash transfer for people in a structured way is essential, not throwing money like this. So anyway, there are many things that can be done, and this was some of the things I just wanted to sum up. Thank you very much.
So much, Vimalji. In fact, this was really interesting, and what we could see is you talk about health, you talk about education, you talk about the PSUs and the e-governance. I think there's every sector where we can see that cloud could be leveraged in the best possible way to deliver services in the most efficient manner. Of course, you need to have the right connectivity in place, you need to have the contents, and you need to have the necessary platforms. So with this, of course, what I was just seeing, interestingly in our session, it started with the basics on the cloud, with the empowerment part of it, right at the infrastructure. We went into the mobile platform, then we went into the SaaS part of it. So we're actually moving from infrastructure to the platforms to the SaaS, and now we have a next speaker, Prem Narayan ji, and I would request him to further enlighten everybody on his views in this area. Thank you.
At the outset, I like to thank elites for inviting me to share my thoughts. Eminent speakers on the dais and beautiful audience. I would be talking about the clouds and related technologies for PSUs and government businesses. This would be a basic presentation on the cloud computing. Just to bring to your notice that IT industry is rapidly moving towards the world of mobile, cloud, big data, social computing services, and much faster than many realize. These technologies are forecasted to drive 90% of all IT growth over the next 5 to 7 years. In the federal government, agency leaders are looking to the mobile and cloud technologies to offset increased budgetary pressures. By 2015, the federal government plans to save close to $5 billion US. So there's a tremendous potential in the area of cloud computing. If we talk about the Indian scenario, there's a expected market of 11,200 crores, which is much more as compared to 2011. During the same period, global revenues from the cloud services will grow from 29 billions to 70 billions. India's massive small and medium business, that is SME and consumer segments, are main driver of cloud computing owing to its own effectiveness. Some well-known cloud services, as we know, is the Google Search, Apple, iTunes, Amazon services. This particular pie chart shows the spending on the IT cloud spending. The storage, on storage, it is applications 52%, storage 13%, server 8%, further application development 9%, and software is 18%. So we can see that the application, IT cloud application is happening in a bigger way. The challenges in cloud computing is towards the maximum return on their investment, that is ROI, expanding services to citizens while reducing costs, robust security to achieve cloud-enabled outcomes, transition to cloud computing environment is very, very important. Especially the government departments, the transition from the traditional system to the cloud computing system, that is to take place, and with that only we will be able to achieve the desired results. Robust security, vertical legacy, and public returns, these are the major challenges. I will not like to go to the meaning of the cloud computing, but I would say that the Forrester Research October 2009, what has come out there, that the cloud computing is one of the top 15 technology trends, and that warrants investment now, so you can gain the experience necessary to take advantage of it in its many forms to transform your organization into a more efficient, responsive service provider to the businesses. So the cloud computing is basically the 5th generation computing after mainframe, personal computer, client, service computing, and the app. This is a typical model of cloud computing, how the cloud service provider are connected, and then the internet, how it is being used by the cloud service providers, further to the connectivity to the internal cloud and to the user. Cloud computing, as our previous speaker also covered, it's the public cloud, private cloud, community cloud, and all these the different types of clouds are important in its own way, because the community cloud is basically for the public, and it will give direct advantage to the public. A strategy for transition to cloud computing is another very important aspect, to look for professional services group that best suits organizational needs. There are vendors available, there are service providers available, but we have to make a best choice for the professional service provider. The team of experts to work with government IT teams to create a wish list for making the transition. Important goals for transition, we have to set the choice of the vendor, technology, alignment with the operational strategy and goals, comprehensive structure, approach, highly secured development, architecture for the organizational needs. So these are the important aspects while we have to set strategy for transition to the cloud computing. Then next comes the implementation part, the provision of virtualized architecture, integrated tools, facility plan, workload migration, security technology architecture, proven methodologies, best practices, deep knowledge of the core systems, adherence to the plans, and enabling on-time delivery of fully implemented cloud model, and knowledge transfer, that is the training of the officials. Then comes the optimization, architecture, we have to review whatever being put in place, security audits, security architecture, posture assessments, cost reduction exercises, process improvements, tool customization, post-deployment or day-to-day support. One of the very important issues which was also talked about in the previous session by one of the speaker is the security. Security is one of the most important aspect. Security with respect to data, data safety, data confidentiality, data privacy, browser security, cloud integrity and binding, network security, regulatory compliances, data center location where we should have the data center, and the dedicated security team to ease transition from the traditional system to the cloud computing. The benefits, as we can see, operational cost savings, low cost of ownership, that is the total cost of ownership, to improve agility, reduces energy consumption significantly, simplification and standardization, the accelerate the development of financially justified cloud strategy, design a secure network infrastructure to underpin a government cloud computing, help ensure the infrastructure management, people and processes at the micro level. Enterprises that use cloud computing services are free of worrying about the technological issues related to IT installation, the organizations which are using the cloud computing technologies. I like to conclude by saying that rate of return on investment in cloud computing continue to rise. There is a widespread conviction that cloud technology will be extensively and successfully used by the government organizations, as we can see from the initiative of Ministry of IT. As a catalyst for overcoming the traditional siloed approach to IT in government, cloud services will contribute to a more efficient, responsible and safe IT environment. In order to support a smooth transition and optimal outcomes, government should first develop a comprehensive cloud strategy that we have already seen in earlier presentations. Forward thinking on part of the government is required to understand how to deploy cloud platforms not only securely but also in the smartest and most efficient possible ways. With these words, thank you very much for listening me.
Much Premji. In fact, this was indeed the conclusion of the session where you did summarize the market is ripe. The lot of opportunities are there. We only need to take care of the concerns, whether it's the security, whether it's the other aspects, and we can actually have a get set go. So I think this session to that extent has very clearly brought the fact that the cloud is here to be adopted. The cloud is here, the applications are available, the need is there, the benefits are very clearly known, there is an ROI that we can see. So if we are in a position to take care of important areas like the platforms that are required, the standards which are required, the security aspects that are required, and the capacity building which has been brought very clearly in the various sessions, we will be in a position to leapfrog in this in a big way. So with this, I would thank all the speakers for having shared their views and enlightening everybody here. Thank you so much.
The small ceremony, I would request Ma'am Renu Buddhiraja to give away the mementos to our eminent speakers. To Vishwanath Alluri, Founder and Executive Chairman, IMImobile. A big round of applause for Mr. Alluri. Mr. R. Balasubramanian, National VD Cloud Solution HP. A round of applause. Mr. Vimal Wakhlu, Chairman and Managing Director, Telecommunications Consultants India Limited. Mr. Prem, Narayan, Director, Foreign Procurement, Ministry of Railways. I will request Mr. Vishwanath Alluri to please present a memento to Madam also. We are very thankful for Madam Renu Buddhiraja, and we really salute the initiative she has been taking in the field of clouds, especially in the governance.